3 months after Soviet troops invaded Afghanistan in 1979, the American people felt fearful and defeated after a series of losses both politically and athletically to the Soviet Union. By the time of the 1980 Winter Olympics, tensions were high and distrust ran rampant throughout the town of Lake Placid, New York. No one thought the ragtag USA hockey team full of college athletes had a chance to beat the professionally stocked Soviet Union team, especially after a 10-3 loss at an exhibition match weeks prior. Despite the odds being stacked against them, the USA men's team pulled through and surprisingly defeated the Soviet Union in a semifinal game on February 22, 1980. The triumph of the USA men's hockey team over the Soviet Union at the 1980 Winter Olympic Games heralded a wave of patriotism amidst the tragedy of the Cold War. The Cold War was a war without battles or a true winner. It began after tensions between Allies in World War II rose, when the communist power of the Soviet Union wanted to expand into Eastern Europe and the capitalist United States wanted to contain them. The Cold War began around 1945 and lasted 45 years, during which the United States participated in an arms race, a space race, Bay of Pigs, a presidential assassination, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the tear down of the Berlin Wall. The year is 1980. The Cold War has been going on for around 35 years, and communism seems to be spreading, and fear runs rampant after the Iranian hostage crisis begins. The Iranian hostage crisis was a result of American interference in the Iranian government, and a direct consequence of President Jimmy Carter allowing the previous expelled Shah of Iran to receive medical treatment in America. The event was in support of the new Iranian leader, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and his anti-American agenda. The event itself occurred on November 4, 1979, when 60 Americans were held hostage after the American embassy in Tehran was stormed by Iranian students. It lasted for 444 days, ended on January 21st in 1981, just after the inaugural address of the newly elected Ronald Reagan. Following soon came the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan was the result of the overthrow of leaders in Afghanistan that began in April of 1978, when Nur Muhammad Taraki, a leader of the Marxist Party, rose to power after a military coup dissolved the government of Soviet opposer Mohammad Daoud Khan. Nur Muhammad Taraki, the pro-communist leader, was overthrown in September of 1979 and replaced with Prime Minister Hafizullah Amin, who was much more willing to open talks with the United States. Fearing losing control of Afghanistan, Leonid Brezhnev, a Soviet leader, invaded Afghanistan on December 24, 1979, which enraged world leaders across the continents and eventually led to the boycott of the 1980 Summer Olympics by many countries, which were held in Moscow. Soon after came the 1980 Winter Olympics, which were held in Lake Placid, New York. Following a recession in the 1970s and preceding the presidential run of Jimmy Carter versus Ronald Reagan, Americans are beat down, tired, and scared of the spread of communism. In the quaint town of Lake Placid, officials were preparing for the 1980 Winter Olympics. The Olympic grounds looked like a spy movie, filled to the brim with intelligence and counterintelligence personnel. The Olympic security force numbered around 1,000 officers, not including undercover FBI, CIA, and KGB agents. Traditionally, the Olympics were a time to ignore politics and just focus on the athletic events. But in the opening committee meeting, Vice President Cyrus Vance directly attacked the Soviet Union and called for a boycott of the Summer Games, a move which Lake Placid Games Chief of Staff Phil Wolf felt was too derogatory and political for the Olympic Games. Despite all the tension, however, the USA hockey players did not see their matches against the Soviet Union as a political stance, but more as a fight for the dream of a lifetime, to beat one of the greatest hockey teams of all time, and to eventually win the gold medal. The USA team was coached by Herb Brooks and captained by Mike Eruzione. Their college-aged players came from a variety of schools, including Boston University, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Bowling Green. They faced off against the professional, experienced men of the Soviet Union team, including legendary goalkeeper Vladislav Tretiak. A week or so prior to the big game, the Americans had lost to the Soviets 10-3 in an exhibition match in Madison Square Garden. Nobody thought they would win this semifinal game. The big game on February 2, 1980 proved everybody wrong. The USA won the Miracle on Ice 4-3 in what is considered one of the greatest moments in hockey ever played. The first period of the game included goals by Vladimir Kucherov, Buzz Schneider, Sergei Makarov, and a last-second goal by Mark Johnson after a misplaced rebound from a save by Vladislav Tretiak. The second period of the game began 2-2, and with Vladimir Mishkin replacing Tretiak in goal, in what many consider the turning point of the game and what coach Tikhonov called the biggest mistake of his career. Only one goal was scored in the second period by Alexander Maltsev, one of the Soviets. The third period began 3-2 and ended 4-3 after incredible goals by Mark Johnson and Mike Eruzione. USA team's goalie Jim Craig had 36 saves and only allowed 3 goals. The game ended with Al Michaels' famous quote,